Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I also prepared some slides, but before I go on into sharing my screen, I just want to say quickly a couple of things about myself, just so you have the background. I'm a UX designer. I'm based in Bucharest, Romania. I've started my design career within a bank, which is the story I'm going to share. And also, I'm currently working as a UX designer within UiPath, which is a company that's based in New York right now. And I've also worked with some startups, and I'm launching a design school this week. So I'm also doing some entrepreneurial efforts. So I kind of much have experience from different perspectives, but yeah, still I can't compare to the speakers before me in terms of experience yet. But I'm gonna go on and share my screen and start sharing my story. And my story is called "The Last Mile is Always the Hardest," because I think that the design process and design challenges in general are like a marathon in the sense that you have to advance slowly but surely, at times faster, at times slow down, maybe go back, things like that, pause. And so it's a very long run. It's not necessarily, it can be a sprint for some portions, but mostly it feels like a marathon. And I always felt that from my own experience, finishing or approaching the finish line for certain parts felt like the hardest part. And I'm going to go on and explain how. So as I was saying earlier, my career started within ING Bank, and I actually worked in the call center in the beginning. So I was dealing with a lot of problems that clients submitted. And so this gave me, let's say, understanding of how important talking to your clients, to your users is. So this set the right foundation for my upcoming future design career. And eventually, yeah, I became a UX designer within this company. And it was very exciting, and I was overwhelmed with joy, and I kind of had some let's say not necessarily small, but medium-sized projects. And it was unbelievable that it's happening, because ever since I discovered the UX design role, I wanted to become a UX designer. And so when it was finally happening, I was really excited. And then my first big project was handed over to me, and it was the redesign of a big platform that was integrated with our online banking app, but it was a platform for online shopping. So it was, let's say, a beyond banking experience, and it was all the spotlight of the company was on this project, and everybody was super was watching closely. And so I was on one hand flattered to be in charge on this project, but also, as this smiley shows, very scared. And so, yeah, so then I started talking to user and doing some research efforts. But being my first big project, I probably wasn't very thorough or tidy about it. Amanda would probably tell me where I was wrong. But yeah, I was talking to users. I was not ignoring them. I tried to use screeners. I tried as much as possible to reach the right people and have different perspectives that were relevant to this project. And so insights started to accumulate, and we talked more to users, and then more insights. And then what happened to me is that I became overwhelmed with all the information. And so this kind of shows my, let's say, my journey. It's like a customer journey map of how I felt. So in the beginning, I was very excited. But as time moved on and the findings grew, I kind of went through all the stages. And in the end, I felt like I lost control completely, because I didn't know how to make sense of all these findings. I didn't know how to move from, okay, I have all this volume of information, but how do I navigate it? How do I prioritize between it? How do I choose one problem to solve? And so it felt really overwhelming. And for me, making the transition from finishing off, if you want, the research part, which the research is never over, so probably in some way you're doing it continuously, but kind of wrapping up on the discovery phase, if you want, I kind of felt like I was in the last mile, and it felt like the hardest. And so, yeah, from all these findings, I kind of was able to extract some problem statements, if you want, which kind of felt like this smiley, relieved. But at the same time, yeah, this was a really hard part. It turned out eventually that the findings or the problems that I decided to solve were leaving out many of other important points. And indeed, in design, you always have to have some trade-offs, but some of the things that I left out or I didn't consider essential were actually essential. And so there were some flaws in the solution that we ended up delivering. But anyhow, let's get back to the point where I was just finishing off this research discovery effort, finding some problems that I want to solve with my solution. And then I felt like, okay, I'm relieved. This is all over. I can now move on into doing pretty screens and things will become beautiful again. And then, yeah, I went on into doing some sketches, some wireframing. This is again a time where I'm in control. I understand what's happening. I can grasp all the information that I'm operating with. But then eventually things started to look something along these lines. This is not actually from that project. So that project was, I couldn't find a sketch file today, but it's like even more all over the place. And so again, I was faced with the same issue as I approached the finish line of a stage or of a problem or of a challenge that I have within the big design challenge. I felt like I was losing control and I couldn't operate with all the complexity that I was faced with. And so somehow I felt that this is how the process looks. With time, the messiness grows as well. And yeah, I ended up screwing up some things. And I know that when handing over to developers, because I was so tired of all the things that were happening at the same time, and I wasn't very rigorous at being tidy about it, which I am now. And this is the lesson I've learned, but we'll get to that. Because I felt completely overwhelmed by all the all the interactions or decisions that I had to make. I ended up making some poor interaction decisions that actually affected the user experience that we launched. And so ideally, you can go through this phase, but you should also get here in the end in a happy place. And my lesson for this project is that the last mile is always the hardest, but at the same time, you have to push through it. And then that things will get better. I'm gonna close my screen now, but I have some other points I want to make. Yeah, so the last points that I want to make are that indeed, as you diverge, you're gonna have to grasp and operate with a lot of complexity. It will feel daunting and overwhelming at many times, or for me it did. What I tried to do differently in other projects that came after this, I'm still not in an ideal place. I still feel like finishing things is really, really hard, or making decisions or making the final say in a project as per the solution or the problem statement is something very hard. I try to use as many artifacts as possible to ease my process. So for example, at that time, I didn't even know about how might wheeze. At this point in my career, I always use them because they help me focus on some problems or reformulate in such a way that I'm understanding what I have to do in order to make the users happy. And so, yeah, in time, I try to adjust and improve on this. But pretty much my journey throughout a design challenge is still a bit, let's say, challenging still today. But the lesson is that even when you feel like things became overwhelming, if you are tidy and rigorous and try to put structure into your efforts, then you'll probably get somewhere. And even if you don't, if the company allows for it, you can go back and iterate and improve and correct what you did. But yeah, my message is that even if we feel like it's really hard in the end, if we push through it, we're gonna get somewhere. So I hope this made sense and people resonated with my story, something that I struggled from the very first project and I still kind of struggle with. And so yeah, this is how I fail often.
Okay, thank you, Ioana. Wow, that was great. Thank you very much for the insights. If you can see the screen, the wall of people are clapping, so that was very nice. I'd like to include anyone that has a question or wants to add to this. Let's hear it from you guys. Don't be shy.
I would like to ask a question on what have you actually changed in your work methods so that this wouldn't happen again?
Yeah,
Who's
it's a
this?
very
Like,
good question.
yeah, like organizing your work in terms of that.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think that it gives me the opportunity to actually go on something more tangible or actionable in terms of the lesson I've learned. So part was introducing new methods that help me stay tidier. So for example, like I mentioned, how might we's or using different prioritization matrices to understand where problems sit at, or where different solutions, how to navigate different solutions that might come up. So I kind of started using this tools, design tools that I didn't know of at that time, and in time I grew to learn about, and also keep being tidier and more. How do I call it? Rigorous with my own process. So even in some recent projects, I journaled or I kept notes of my design process, of what I felt at certain points, of what happened in team meetings or stuff like that. So I kind of started keeping a, let's say, yeah, it's a journal in a way. It's like documenting my entire journey through solving a challenge, and documenting has helped me a lot with keeping clarity at all points. And also, as per the later phases of the design process, where things get messy in a very tangible way with your design files, and this has always happened to me, and perhaps in the handoff phase as well. The case for that story that I told was that I was in a situation where I was in a continuous ping pong with the developers, because I wasn't clear about the solution or parts of it from the very beginning. And in time, I grew better at the handoff process in itself and explaining my design decision. I have conversations with the developers from very early on, and then I keep in very close touch. So I think it's not one answer. There are several things that I started doing, but indeed, probably being thorough about your work and being tidy within every step of the process is something that is generally the gist of what I'm trying to say. I hope that
Okay,
makes sense.
thank you. We had a hand raised from Kushnik. Kushnik, still there?
Yeah, hi, this is Kaushik.
Okay.
So I recently graduated as a product designer. I just want to get confirmed as recently I'm working in a gaming industry. So I faced a kind of a problem where I'm not able to tackle a situation where uh, there are a number of existent problems in the world. And also, when I look upon each and every problem, and I'm losing the bit of confidence of how to actually target on particular solution. So that's for that's what the question like right. Like how do
Yeah,
I yes.
no, please finish your.
Uh, yes, how do I convince on a solution rather than a problem?
Yeah, well, I think I hope I will answer your question and I got it right. I think that what helped me, for example, in my own personal experience, is that always, in order to choose a particular solution or navigate between several solutions, I always circle back to the problem. And this is why documenting your journey is very important, because you have a place to go back and inform your later steps in the design process. And I think whether you're talking about balancing different solutions at the same time, I think that solutions kind of, I think responding to the problem and being good for the user is the most important part of the solution. So this is the number one requirement that any solution should have, solving a problem. But at the same time, they always sit at the intersection of being feasible, being, I don't know, if you're in a big company, some solutions are too costly or they might. So I think that you should also add this layer of feasibility, technical difficulty, or yeah, the business perspective to your solutions. And I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, I understand it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ioana. We're moving on.